Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Got a pretty interesting show for you today. Gonna have some interesting topics. Gonna talk some Tom Brady. Gonna talk some LeBron James, of course. Gift that keeps on giving, and we're also gonna talk some BJ Armstrong. We had some very interesting comments about the NBA. But before we get to that, you know what time it is.
If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait.
All right, so I know in the intro there I said that I'll be given the opportunity to do call-ins. Tonight is not going to be a call-in show. Don't have my man G with me, and it's going to be probably a little quicker one. So I'm going to give my thoughts on what we have. But tonight's not going to be a call-in show, but we'll get that back up and running once we kind of get the panel right. But I definitely want to get into talking about some things that I thought were very interesting over the course of the week in sports. So. As you can see, the first topic we're going to get onto is the legendary Tom Brady, right? And if you're a sports fan and you're on this channel, then you know who Tom Brady is, and you know just what he symbolizes in the world of football, especially in the NFL and quarterback play, right? We know what Tom Brady's about. But quick recap for you. By himself, Tom Brady has won more NFL championships than any franchise in history. Yes, any franchise. He's got 6 with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots over a 20-year stretch, which is without question the greatest stretch in the history of the National Football League. And then he left them, went to the Tampa Bay Bucks, and in his first year there, won another Super Bowl championship, pretty much cementing him as the greatest quarterback who's ever done it. Deading the arguments that he's a system guy, that he can only win with one style and one guy. And so yeah, he did that. So he's got 7 Super Bowl championships. If you're in the chat, thanks for checking in. Make sure you give a like. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're coming in from. All right, so back to Tom Brady. Tom Brady holds just about every significant quarterback record in the NFL. Wins, playoff wins, passing yards, touchdowns in the postseason and in the regular season. Like, he's got it all. And Pat Mahomes is on a tremendous trajectory. He may break those. He's going to have to play a long time to do it. But as of right now, Brady's got it all. And he's that guy, right? So we know that he's that guy. And most people have him as the greatest quarterback of all time. Some have him as the greatest overall football player of all time. And I don't think I can go that far as having him as the greatest football player of all time. But he's definitely the greatest quarterback of all time, in my opinion. Why? He's got the combination of winning. He's got the combination of skill set, and he's got the other part, which is the statistics. You put all those 3 together, and nobody can touch him. Now, is it going to be that way forever? Probably not. Records are made to be broken. But as of right now, he is. All right. So here's the thing, right? We saw Tom Brady retire from Tampa Bay. Then we saw Tom Brady come back and play another season. And then he retired for good, right? He gave his announcement. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He said he retired. He's done. This time it's for good. And we know that he's working on becoming a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. But, here's the thing about that. On a recent episode of the Deep Cut podcast, which actually was a pretty decent show, it was pretty interesting. A lot of things that he had to say. I watched that. It's probably maybe about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, but some really good stuff. Very interesting. And he got right back in the public eye again with a bunch of interesting comments. So what I'm going to do here is I'm gonna go one by one. I got about 3 of his comments that I wanna bring up, and after each one, I'm gonna come back and kind of give my thoughts on it, and then we'll see what it is. All right. So here's the first one.
I mean, so we've seen the game change a lot, very quick. It's almost every single week there's a rule change. What are your thoughts on the hip drop tackle being removed and just the physicality of the game changing.
Yeah, it's again a thing I don't like about it. I feel like we're trying to protect people in a physical sport. I don't think you go into a boxing match and say, okay, I want you to beat your opponent, but I don't want you to beat him bad.
Yeah, don't hit him that hard.
Yeah, don't hit him hard. Just tap him and try to win on points. I feel like if you could protect yourself in football, then it's your responsibility to protect yourself. I don't think it's your opponent's responsibility to protect you. Now, I'm not saying if you are an unprotected player, like someone kicking the ball, a quarterback in the pocket, a receiver catching the ball, a linebacker, who can't see someone coming to block them from the outside in, you need to protect D linemen's knees. But you can't say you have the 100% ability to protect yourself, but this offensive player can't block you a certain way, or you can't be physical. There's going to be a lot of people that have been in the Hall of Fame. Ray Lewis, Rodney Harrison, some of the greatest players have ever been around. Great defenses, the Steel Curtain, the Purple People Eaters, Denver's defense, the what they call them, no-fly zone. All those guys. I mean, they won Super Bowls and were part of championship teams because of their physicality. Offense is the only way to win games now. It used to be offense, defense, special teams. We've created a game now where only the offense can really make an impact. Because defense, every time you make a great defensive play, there's a penalty, and it advances the ball 15 yards. And they blame the defensive player for hitting an offensive player too hard. So I don't like those things. I'd like for it to have a closer look at how we've affected the game in a negative way. And I think that should be seriously thought about for the future of the game.
All right, so I liked a lot of what Tom Brady had to say there. I really did. And the first thing, my first thoughts on that were, yes, Tom Brady, you're 100% right in terms of the rules changes and everything favoring the offense. And I get that. I've been whining about that for years. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. And so as a Ravens fan, it kind of comes with the territory that you're going to love defense. And so I have been complaining about it for years, how basically they're legislating everything out for the sake of the offense. And then, of course, you got to think about all the money that's involved, right? They also want to avoid the excessive injuries on the players because the NFL doesn't want to get hit with another one of those big lawsuits. So you have that part. And then, of course, you have the gambling influence, and you have the fact that most fans love high scoring football. And if you see elite defense, well, they're going to change the channel, right? But all the sports are really doing it, if we're going to be honest, right? What are the thoughts in sports now? Speed up the game and get more scoring. These are what the sports do. For instance, in baseball, you have the adding of the pitch clock, which is actually, I'm not a baseball guy, but I've been advocating for that for years because I never could understand how people could watch baseball and these pitchers are taking so long in between pitches, just standing up there and doing whatever the heck they're doing. And it was just so boring. But adding the pitch clock, I think, was a beautiful move in baseball. In hockey, they changed the rules. Again, I'm not a hockey aficionado. I actually read about this. I should have put it in my notes, but they did change the rules to boost scoring. I think one of the ways they did it was in the overtime period. They actually went down to a 3-on-3 sudden death setting, and that helps to boost scoring. And it's to the point that Alexander Ovechkin, the grade 8 in Washington, is actually on pace to break Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record of 894 career goals. And that was one that I thought would never, ever be broken. But in basketball, you see they do it, and I complain about this all the time. There's less physicality, no hand checking, defensive 3-second rule, allowing the carry and the travel. And, of course, we'll discuss that a lot more in depth later when we get to the BJ Armstrong segment. But in basketball, the rules have changed. In the NFL, of course, like we're talking about with Tom Brady here, they're basically handcuffing the defense at every turn. You heard the barber in the Deep Cut podcast there asked Tom Brady what he thought about the hip drop tackle, and that's basically where you're trying to run a guy down and you can't bring him to the ground, so you drop your hips and kind of twist him around so that you can get him down. And apparently, guys are getting injured on that play. But the fact is, you get an NFL caliber athlete running at full speed, trying to get away. Your whole goal is to get him on the ground so you can stop that play and keep him from gaining any more yardage. What are you supposed to do? I don't get it, right? They are handcuffing defenses at every turn. Then you talk about the way they're protecting QBs. Can't hit them below the knees. Can't hit them above the shoulders. And then basically every hard hit is a penalty. Because why? The quarterback is the glamour position in the NFL now. They want all these highly paid, outstanding young quarterbacks to be on the field because what? When the game doesn't have the best quarterbacks playing, it's not as good a game. And I understand it from a business perspective, but there are still two sides of the ball, right? There's offense and there's defense. And what is the defense supposed to do when you put them consistently at a disadvantageous position? It's tough, man. It's tough. You think about it now. You have this well, not right now, but over the last couple of years, they instituted this whole defenseless receiver thing. Back in the day, wide receivers, they used to be scared unless they were the toughest of the tough in terms of coming across the middle of the field. Why? Because they would get blasted. In other interviews, you've heard Tom Brady talk about when he's playing against the Baltimore Ravens, he didn't throw the ball in certain places because he didn't want his receivers to get lit up by Ray Lewis coming across the field. That's part of the game. That's just part of the game. It is a physical game, and you know that when you sign up to play that game. And it's funny because so many players who are retired, even those who have been severely injured and such, you always ask them, would you do it again? And to a man, they all say, yes, I'd do it again. So it's like, what are we doing here, right? It's of course not the same game that we grew up with, but it's I don't know, man. You hear about Drew Bledsoe, and one of the things he said was, I think it was his first game. He was with the Patriots, and they were playing the Buffalo Bills, and he says Bruce Smith came around the corner, and Bruce Smith hit him. Bruce Smith, all-time NFL sacks leader. I think he's got 200 career sacks on the nose. And Bruce Smith basically put his helmet between the one in Drew Bledsoe's back, and he had to get up and he had to keep playing. And I get it. Drew Bledsoe, I believe, was the first $100 million man in the NFL. But the point is, it is a physical game. You can't just handcuff well, I guess you can because that's what they're doing. You're just handcuffing the defense, and it's not cool, right? And here's another thing. I agree with what Tom Brady said, but he's acting like he himself hasn't been able to take advantage of the rules changes because there is no way that he could have played so long at such a high level if things were the same as they were back in the day. There's just no way in terms of being able to put up all the numbers because why? You can't you really can't touch receivers. And then of course we talked about the inability to effectively hit quarterbacks now. Yeah, you can hit them, but you can't really hit them, right? And so he knows he took advantage of that rule about not hitting quarterbacks below the knee. That's because of him. I think it was 2007. I think it was 2007. Tom Brady in the opening game of the season, he blew his knee out. He got hit, and that rule got changed because of Tom Brady, right? So Drew Bledsoe, he literally almost died because of that brutal but clean hit at the time that he got from Mo Lewis, and that hit literally opened up Tom Brady's opportunity to become the starter in New England and set the pace for the career that we know now as the greatest in the history of any quarterback who ever played. So I get what Tom Brady's saying, and I agree, but I think he's being just a bit disingenuous in the way he's presenting it when he has been able to take so much advantage of those things that happen in his career and those rules changes. But here's a second clip, and it's funny that he mentioned Ray Lewis and the Steel Curtain and those type of elite defenses and defensive players.
Player you hated going against the most?
Ray Lewis. Yeah, just because he was the baddest dude. And he was so smart. He knew where things were going before. He'd look for any tip on the O-line. He'd listen to anything the quarterback said, any formation. He was so on top of it.
Yeah.
I just loved his approach. How he played the game from a defensive standpoint.
And so now again, I mentioned earlier I'm a Ravens fan, so there's probably some bias here, but I do believe that there's a legitimate argument for Ray Lewis as the greatest linebacker of all time. He wasn't the pass rusher that Lawrence Taylor was, but he was everything else. He could drop in coverage, he could stop the run, he could get after the quarterback if you wanted to play him that way. He was super physical, super smart in terms of understanding coverage, reading, watching film and studying and teaching other guys. Ed Reed credits Ray Lewis a lot for him learning to read film and study defensively and all that. And I think that Ray Lewis was just such an incredibly dominant player mentally and physically. But as great as Ray Lewis was, he's a player that might not even be able to play today based on the way he played with so much physicality, so much passion, and the way the rules are today. So it was very interesting that Tom Brady said that Ray Lewis was the guy that he hated to play against the most. But I think that's also a mark of respect from a guy as great as Tom Brady. All right, let's go to his next clip, which is the one that really got my attention. And this is him asked if he would ever consider coming back to football.
We get it. You're 100% retired.
Yes.
Let's say one day there's a situation, right? Maybe it's the 49ers, maybe, heading to the playoffs. Offense is great.
Patriots,
Somebody,
Raiders,
look,
could be, you never know.
God forbid somebody goes down. Would you pick up that phone?
I'm not opposed to it. If they would, I don't know if they're going to let me if I become an owner in an NFL team, but I don't know if, I don't know. I'm always going to be in good shape. Always be able to throw the ball. So to come in for a little bit, like MJ coming back, I don't know if they let me, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
So these were some really interesting comments, and when I heard this was the one that really got my idea to use this as a topic in this particular show. And clearly he has the itch, right? Because a lot of times you hear the guys, once they're done, they still have the itch to play. Maybe not necessarily to go through everything it takes to be able to play on Sundays, but we know that Brady is a dude that loves the preparation and he loves the training and he loves the film study and all of that. But he clearly has the itch. Obviously he is a psycho competitor, and I'm sure that given the opportunity, he would be back out there. And I thought that was very interesting. What's up, man, Don? Appreciate you. Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Back in the day, I wasn't a huge Tom Brady fan, but I love his competitive nature, and I love a lot of the things that he has to say. But like I said earlier, I don't know if you caught it. I think he's being disingenuous when he talks about the way that defenses are handcuffed, because a lot of that has truly helped him to be able to play this long at this high level. Well, not play this long, but play as long as he did at that high level. But before I get a little bit more into Tom Brady possibly coming back, I got to say this, right? Let me be consistent. And that's a big thing for me. I'm huge on consistency. And here's the deal. If this was LeBron James, I would be going at him for being an attention whore. I really would. Always looking for the cameras and always trying to get attention by any means necessary. And so I have to do the same thing here for Tom Brady. We know how great Tom Brady was. We know that. We know that he has had a better career in his sport than LeBron James has had in his. That's just a fact. I don't care, LeBron fanboys, what you say or what you don't. The fact is, Brady's career in his sport, in which it's actually even harder to win, is better than LeBron James in his. But anyway, here's the thing. He doesn't need to do this. He really doesn't. And I kind of get why he is saying these stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. He was asked a question in this, but he was asked a question. But at the end of the day, I think that what he was doing is using the media, and both he and LeBron know exactly how to use the media. They understand media to a T. But here's the deal. Apparently, active NFL players cannot also be owners. Apparently, that's written down somewhere. I looked that up before the show started. And so we heard Brady say that he's not closing the door in terms of playing again. But to do it, he'd have to hold off on becoming an NFL owner. He didn't say that part. But remember, he said, he doesn't know how that would go with him trying to become an owner. But if he could do both, then he would play again, obviously if the right call came. But here's my question, though. What does he really have to gain by becoming an NFL player again? It's not like he never won, so he's hanging around trying to chase a championship. He's got 7 of those things. Again, by himself, he's got more than any other franchise. So as one player, he's got more championships than any other franchise. He's got 7 rings. So that's not what he's looking for. Is he looking for records? He holds pretty much all the major quarterback records in history, so he can't be looking for that. I mean, is it only the itch for competition, or the itch for being around the guys, the camaraderie that you can't really find anywhere else, maybe outside of the military? So it's funny. I've always said, in terms of that level of camaraderie, there's 3 places you can get it: high level athletics, active duty military, and like fire and police, right? I don't think there's I guess fire and law enforcement. Let's say that. I don't think there's too many other places. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. If there's too many other places where you can get that type of itch scratch, so to speak. So Ronald Jones says, how about money? And we know that Brady's got a ton of money, and Brady also has the deal from Fox to become an announcer, a color guy, 10 years, $350 million. So that's going to be more money than he made playing football, and that's going to be sitting in a booth to be a color guy. So this is what I think. Like, there's that high level of competition, and then that level of camaraderie that it can't really be matched anywhere else. And I think that that's kind of what Tom Brady is missing and what he's looking for. And you hear that from a lot of guys who do high level athletics after they retire and they're done playing. It's that level of camaraderie and that level of competition that you just can't get anywhere else. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Tom Brady and his interesting comments from the Deep Cuts podcast. So you can actually go check that out, the Deep Cut podcast. It was a pretty good interview. Like I said, it was probably an hour and 15 minutes or so. He talked a lot about his life, and the other guy on the show talked about his life, and then he gave a lot of thoughts. And at the end, he was asked those questions, and you heard his responses there. Okay. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my next topic. And
it's like, honestly, it's a gift and a curse.
My bad. We're going to talk about LeBron James. And, he's the gift that keeps on giving, man. He's the gift that keeps on giving. So here we go again. So I know there's going to be some people that aren't going to be feeling this segment, but hey, man, I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to get some help in telling the truth. It's not just me. So here we go again, right? Good old LeBron James. So before I go ahead and start talking, let me do the obligatory. Let me give him his flowers on an incredible career, because he has had an incredible career. Of course, nothing I say about LeBron, short of starting a new religion and naming LeBron its deity and its prophet, will be good enough for some of you. I know that that's what you want from me. You want me to get down on my knees and say LeBron is this and LeBron is that, and I worship LeBron. That's not going to happen. But I will give him his flowers for having an all-time great career filled with incredible achievements. So I know that's not good enough for some of you, but it's going to have to be what it's going to have to be. All right. Now, some of you who follow this channel have known me personally for years, and you know where I stand when it comes to LeBron. Some of you know me just from this channel, and you know where I stand on LeBron based on the content I've created. Now, last week, I came here and I talked about how LeBron just continues to prove me right, right? I talked about that. And what did I do? I let LeBron himself tell you why he proves me right. Because every time I made a statement, LeBron just went and backed me right up. And that's fine. Now, I could go into something else that he said this week on the Mind the Game pod with JJ Redick that proved his haters right. But I'm not going to do that. But before I really get into this segment, let me remind you, because I know you'll remind me, that I didn't play on any high level. I didn't play basketball on any high level. So I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm the reason that just anybody shouldn't be able to get on a mic and talk about basketball, because I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And LeBron lives rent-free in my head, right? And I'm a hater, right? These are all the things that you people tell me. I have nothing else to do but wake up every morning and hate on another black man, right? That's what y'all tell me. Right? Okay. We'll get ready for another dose of truth serum. I got you. So we know that more than half of current NBA players believe that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. And how do we know this? This is based on an anonymous survey of the players conducted last year by The Athletic, outstanding sports publication. If you're interested, check that out. The Athletic is great. Okay. But they must all be old head haters, all these players who said that, because, they don't know what they're talking about. They must have never played. Wait. Oh, they active NBA players who are playing right now. So they're not old heads, and they did play. Okay, but whatever. All right. We also know that LeBron's own former teammate, not me, LeBron's own former teammate, Mario Chalmers, played with him for 4 years. And he said, not me now, he said opponents didn't fear LeBron like they feared Michael Jordan. His former teammate. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Damn, he must be an old head hater too. Damn, Mario Chalmers. All right. Dwayne Wade, his best friend in the NBA and his co-star in Miami, also said Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. He's the GOAT. Damn, another old head hater who never played and don't know what he's talking. Oh, damn, my bad. Okay. Dwayne Wade, he's a Hall of Famer and he's okay. All right, cool. All right, okay. I got it. So Ray Allen, who played against prime Kobe Bryant, late prime Michael Jordan, played against prime LeBron, also played with prime LeBron. He was asked his all-time starting five lineup, and LeBron James didn't make the cut. Wait a minute. No, that can't be right. How come y'all don't get it yet? How come you don't get it yet? He's not what you think. But it's cool. It's cool. They're all old head haters, and apparently they never played, so they don't know what they're talking about, right? That's what y'all tell me when I say the same things. I'm an old head hater. I'm sitting here, and I'm the reason that they shouldn't give anybody a microphone and let them talk on the internet, and I never played, so I don't know what I'm talking about. And see, I know that I'm being redundant here. I know that. But you are the ones who asked for this. So anyway, here is yet another LeBron James teammate, former LeBron James teammate, I should say, who's telling it how it is. So let's now hear these comments from former LeBron James teammate J.R. Smith. And before we start, I'll assume that he knows what he's talking about. But if you're a LeBron fan, probably not. Let's check it out.
It's like, honestly, it's a gift and a curse with playing with Bron. Like, I love Bron to death, and I love playing on this team because for me, I feel like I thrive more under the pressure. But a lot of guys don't like it because, you know, it can go one of two ways. It's either what did you not do to help him win, and who else didn't not help him win, you know? And it's like, bro, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, he had 40, 15, 9, and 8, but he missed a free throw too. like, don't just look at me because I missed an open shot. It's like, we all missing out here. It ain't like it's just, you know. And I think that for a lot of guys, it's hard to, especially with the day and age we're in, social media, continuously people, you got analysts running around talking crazy, and you playing on that team, and I think they're 12 or 13, and they still the most talked about team on TV. So it's always going to be that supporting cast of who's not doing what or who, you know, and if you're not built for that, you're not made for that, it's going to eat you alive.
Okay. So J.R. Smith, he's a hater, right? He's an old head hater, right? He doesn't know what he's talking about because, see, there we go. Again, I'm saying this stuff because this is what y'all tell me. But I don't hear you saying it when these guys played in the league. These guys played with LeBron. These guys played against LeBron. But they're saying the same thing I say. So now you heard him. And I know I've said this for years, but he never has enough. He never has enough. We heard LeBron say that last week. Go back and check last week's episode. I played that clip for you. He never has enough. He literally said we didn't have enough. And it's always someone else's fault, right? The fans say it. The mainstream media says it. It's always someone else's fault. It's the teammate's fault. He didn't have enough help, or this player didn't do that. It's the coach's fault. He's gotten multiple coaches fired. Not my opinion. We know this. This is a fact. Go back and do the research. Interesting, isn't it? We're now hearing that Lakers coach Darvin Ham is on the hot seat. And to be fair, I didn't even think Darvin Ham was going to make it through last season, his first season. But he did a pretty good job coaching those guys to the Western Conference Finals. And of course, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, outstanding players. So they did their thing as well. I'm not going to sit here and act like LeBron is a bum. I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. Okay. But yeah, so Darvin Ham, he's on the hot seat, and we're hearing the reports now that Los Angeles Lakers players wanted him gone earlier in the season, and they wanted assistant coach Phil Handy to take over the team. Now, if that's how they felt, that's how they felt. But I think that, and I could be totally wrong here, and I'm not saying that more than one player on that roster didn't feel that way, but if it's me, I believe they're following LeBron's lead on this, right? And why do I feel that way? We just watched earlier this week LeBron James blatantly disrespect his coach. We watched him completely ignore Darvin Ham trying to draw up a play in the huddle and then walk away while Darvin Ham was still talking. Now, yes, if you're LeBron, you have had the type of career you've had. You're the type of elite player historically that you are. I suppose you can do that. But the people say that he's such an elite leader. He's such a great leader. Do great leaders behave that way? I would think that you would be trying to set an example for the rest of the team and the young players. Even if, okay, the rest of the guys go back on the floor, you say, hey, coach, man, I don't think that's the right way to go or whatever. Or even if you play along with the huddle and then you get out on the floor, and we've heard these stories about Kobe, we've heard these stories about Michael Jordan, Bird, etc. You get out on the floor and you say, hey, don't run that. We're going to run this. Okay, that's something different. Do I necessarily agree with it? No, but you're out there in the heat of battle, so to speak. You see what's happening. You can make that adjustment on the fly probably faster than a coach can. So I get it. But to blatantly ignore your coach trying to draw up and diagram the play and then just walk away, nah, I can't really rock with that. That's not cool. So here's the deal. We hear his fans complain time and time and time again about him never having had a great coach, right? But he's gotten coach after coach after coach fired, right? He's gotten at least 5 coaches fired. I want to say 6. And if Pat Riley wasn't the guy that he is, we know that Eric Spoelstra would be gone too, because LeBron tried to get him fired. The reports are there. Go look that up. And we know that LeBron did that. So, I mean, it is what it is. Whether you're a LeBron fan or not, these are not things that I'm making up. All this stuff is easily verifiable. Easily verifiable. Okay. Now, we hear it out of the mouth of a former teammate that, again, it's always somebody else's fault. And you got to be built for that if you go play with this dude. But when I say it, I'm a hater. Now, we keep hearing guys that played with LeBron say the exact same things that I've said for years, but okay, cool. In all seriousness, what supposed GOAT do we hear his teammates talking about him like this, or her? What supposed GOAT do we see behaving in this way, right? I don't understand it. I really don't. And this is the stuff that the mainstream sports media ignores, and it drives me absolutely crazy. They continue to push this false narrative. This is the stuff LeBron James and Clutch Sports and now the Mind the Game pod with JJ Redick are pushing. And so many so-called basketball fans are eating it up with a spoon. So why don't you just say, I'm not a basketball fan, I'm a LeBron fan. Just say that, right? And for those who say, again, I'm hating or LeBron lives in my head rent free and I can only make topics about LeBron because that's the only time I get any traffic. Okay, cool. But it's so funny. The same ones who say that, where are you when I'm talking about basketball topics other than LeBron? Something to think about, right? So I'm a hater, but you love this guy. You love him. So you only want to hear me talk about him so you can, it is what it is. All right. I have no problem saying that LeBron James is great and that his career is all-time great. You heard that? LeBron James is great and he's had an all-time great career. But 2 things can be true. I can say that while on the opposite side, point to the things that I've been saying for years, demonstrate how they're true, demonstrate how LeBron himself backs me up, demonstrate himself how his former teammates back me up. I keep doing it, but y'all want to keep fighting me. He's gotten a whole lot of help from the media over the years. And here's the scary thing. Have we all noticed that as LeBron's career is winding down, we're hearing more and more of this kind of stuff? Have we noticed that? When he retires, he's going to get the flowers that he so richly deserves. All-time leading scorer in basketball history, not just NBA, in basketball history. So much credit due for that, right? For him to be able to play at such a high level for so long. We've never seen anything like that. Can't take that away from him, right? 4 championships, can't take those away from him, right? Cool. That doesn't mean that the other things are also not valid. See, this is the problem. Like I said at the beginning of this segment, unless I create a new religion and I name LeBron James the deity and the prophet, it's not going to be good enough for y'all. But that's not going to happen. Okay, so here's the other thing. Serious question. And I'm waiting for you LeBron fans to answer this. And you can leave your comments in the comments section. Why does LeBron James have so much trouble with accountability? Why does he have issues with just about every coach? Why is it always someone else's fault? Can someone please answer these questions for me? I need to know. I need to know. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move to the last topic for the night before I get out of here. Last topic for the night. This one I thought was really interesting as well. Definitely some captivating stuff here. And so let's take it here. I keep hearing that this era is the best ever era of NBA basketball. I keep hearing the players are more skilled than any era ever before. I keep hearing the players are better. I keep hearing the league is better. I keep hearing the competition is better. And one of the arguments that is made for this is because offensive efficiency and scoring is way up and it's higher than it's ever been before. True. And I always push back on this. And one of my biggest arguments on this is players aren't necessarily more skilled. They've traded one skill for another. And the officiating lets them consistently get away with violations that help the offensive player a lot. But again, since I never played, let's hear from someone who did. How about we hear from a 3-time NBA champion with the Chicago Bulls and a former All-Star and now an agent, so he's still around the game, BJ Armstrong. Let's hear what BJ Armstrong had to say about the changes in the NBA. How about that? Let's check it out.
You know what's really amazing when you watch the game, Mo? Okay, one, the rules have changed. Okay, so when you're making these comparisons, it's not really a comparison because the rules have changed. So the game in the 80s and the 90s is a totally different game than what you're watching now. But you know what's really significant is the refereeing has really changed. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I was watching this highlight of Allen Iverson. And it was amazing for me to watch it. And the reason what made me watch it more was because my youngest son now, he wants to learn how to dribble. And we were doing, he's 8. So, we're just doing the basic ball handling dribbling. He just wants to learn how to dribble. And he was at basketball camp and he was showing me here and he wanted to practice and doing these things. But then I was watching Allen Iverson dribble and I thought, what an advantage it was to be able to kind of carry the ball when you're dribbling. Mm-hmm. So I started watching Allen Iverson and then I went and watched the Dallas Mavericks and I said, wow, Kyrie, he carries the ball. And then I went and watched Jamal Crawford. I was like, that's about the time it really started changing when Jamal Crawford and these guys kind of got in. And then I started watching Tim Hardaway and I was like, oh, wow, he was dribbling on top of the ball. And then I was just watching all of the players and I thought, Mo, to myself, if you could carry the ball like the guards do today, that's a huge advantage when you're playing. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, Mo, the previous generation wasn't allowed to play that way because of the refereeing of the game. The biggest change has been the interpretation of the rules of the game, Mo. Like carrying, you'll see it called every now and then. But, Mo, you weren't allowed to do that in the previous generations. And how different would it be if you were able to play carrying the ball? Mm-hmm. By the rules of that era, that was a carry. Now, the referees, Mo, now I want to start talking to the referees because I want to know how did the interpretation of just that one action, that changed the game probably more than anything. And if you were allowed to do how these guys are doing, like, Bo, of course you can do things that you couldn't do because you weren't allowed to do that just by the rules itself. So, I think the referees, Bo, I want to get the referees on the show because how did that happen? Like, I don't remember it being like a thing like we're just not going to call it. But it's just, I remember one of those, it kind of gradually, that was just kind of how it evolved.
Okay, so you heard that from someone who knows much better than I ever will. And the funny thing is, there haven't actually been any rules changes which allow the carry or the double dribble, etc. Officials are just, for some reason, I'm not sure what, not calling the violations for the most part. So how can you tell me today's players are so skilled when the violations are so commonplace? I'm lost. I really am. Now, not only are we seeing the carrying and the double dribbling, aka the discontinue, now we are seeing the travel consistently, the so-called gather and zero steps, i.e. travels. Now I get things change over time, but this is ridiculous. Also, if we watch the game, we're constantly seeing what should be illegal moving screens and nothing gets called. Why is that? Because one, if we played the whistle tight, games would take forever. And we talked earlier about all the things that they're doing because they want faster pace in all the sports, not just football, not just basketball, in all the sports, right? People's attention spans are less and less, unfortunately. And so you want to get these games in, 3 hours in and out, right? We've seen it in football, we've seen it in college football, basketball, hockey, baseball, all of that. And so they're trying to speed up the game. And so more whistles means a slower game, right? Okay. Two, players would be exposed for their lack of fundamentals, and this marketing campaign that they got going on about today's players being the most skilled ever, well, that would fall apart. That would fall apart. So if you take a look at this Mind the Game podcast with JJ Redick and LeBron James, and yes, I watch this show every week religiously. And why do I watch it? Again, because I've said this before, it's not a bad show and I actually learn things, but also I watch it because LeBron is always going to give me something to talk about, and he's always going to prove me right with the things that he says. But anyway, this week they discussed a type of screen called the Gortat screen, and if you go back and watch it, they'll explain how it is and what it does, among other things, right? So the Gortat screen. But go watch that particular segment of the show, and that's an easy one where you can see the moving screens. You can also see a lot of the screens that the Warriors set to get Steph Curry free. Now, is Steph Curry one of the greatest off-ball movers of all time? Absolutely. But he gets away with not he, but the Warriors get away with a whole lot of moving screens or dirty screens to get this guy free so that he can have open looks at his shots. Now, does he still have to make them? Yes. Does he still have to make them from often absurd distances? Yes. We know how great Steph is. But if you watch it, we see it. For instance, in the women's Final Four, that was UConn and Iowa, the Caitlin Clark game. We saw UConn get caught for an illegal screen at the end of that game, and people were up in arms when it was the correct call. Now, we can argue whether or not it was the right time of game to call it. We can argue whether or not there were a million other moving screens during the earlier portions of the game that didn't get called. But the point is, they called that whistle properly. And I think that a lot of people would not know what to do. They would lose their minds if you watched modern NBA basketball and all the carries got called and all the travels got called and all the double dribbles got called and all the moving screens got called. But what that does, again, it exposes those lacks of fundamentals. It exposes that. And then when you have all this going on, you can't now sit here and tell me that you have the most skilled players ever because they're constantly getting that whistle, right? Okay. So here's the other thing. You can't say a player of an era is better and more skilled if they're allowed to violate on a consistent basis. You just can't. You just can't. And no matter how you feel about that, that is the truth. So here's the other deal, right? We talk about this whole today's players are more skilled than ever, and BJ didn't really touch on that. He just talked about the carrying, but it all kind of ties together. So you're telling me today's players are more skilled than ever, but that's really not true. Now, are they super skilled? Some of them, yes. But it's really not true to say they're more skilled than ever because I can name two skills in the modern game which are nearly non-existent, and you're supposed to have the most skilled players ever. What are these two skills? The mid-range jump shot and the back to the basket post-up. Nearly non-existent in the modern game. And that's what I mean when I say that modern players traded one skill for another, right? Because the argument is they're more skilled than ever because just about every player in the modern NBA can shoot the three. You need to be able to space the floor. And so everybody needs to be able to shoot the three. And then, of course, analytics are telling you threes are worth more than twos, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. But because the three is so important and so many people want to say that, that's the argument they make for today's players being more skilled. But the league average of 3-point field goal attempts, it is higher, But by focusing on that, other skills are gone by the wayside. Like I said, back to the basket, post up, mid range jump shot. So this is interesting, though. We put so much of a premium on threes and say the guys today are so much better shooters. Now, here's the deal. The three-point shot was actually introduced into the NBA in 1979. And in the 1980s, the league average was about 30%. Okay. Obviously, it's still a very new shot. And the fact is this, the game has always been the highest percentage shot is the shot closest to the rim. And who's normally down there is bigs, right? And bigs aren't really shooting threes. And the goal is what? To get the highest percentage shot closest to the rim. Fast break, transition, layups, dunks, etc. Okay, cool. And in the 80s, the league average from three was about 30%. In the 1990s, the league average from three bumped up to about 34%, which is not bad at all. Now, I know some of you are going to tell me, yeah, they moved in the three-point line in 1994. So 1994, 1995, and 1996, the three-point line moved in, and we saw the three-point percentages spike. Not spike to like 40%, but spike to about 36. And then the league pushed the three-point line back out in 1997. But the average for the decade was about 34%. Now, in the 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, that three-point average got up to 36%. Again, more shooting, more shooting, more shooting. And in the 2010s, 36%. From 2020 to 2024, the first half of this decade, the three-point average again is 36%. So what I'm saying is this. From the 1990s, let's say 1997, when they pushed the three-point line back out, to today, the three-point percentage of the entire league has only gone up 2%. Now, for an era that's so much more offensively sophisticated and so much more skilled, and everyone is such a better shooter, why is there not a bigger gap between 1997 and today? Why? Because the narrative is false. It's a lie. And that's based on shooting, because since the 90s, it's only risen from 34 to 36%, and that's just not a huge jump. It's just not. So what I'd love is for someone who's a proponent of this era and you truly believe that today's players are more skilled, even though we know that they get away with traveling and they get away with double dribbling and they get away with carrying and they shoot way more threes, but the percentage has not drastically risen. Tell me in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Let me know. Tell me how it is that you're telling me that these players are better. Tell me. It just, they're not more skilled. Again, they're trading skills. That doesn't make them more skilled. Yes, I mentioned that, Ron. The pace of the game has changed and it is much faster. But actually, while it is the fastest, it's not particularly that much faster than it was in the 1960s or in the 1980s. Those two are also extremely fast decades on record. You can look that stuff up. But the point is, even for all of that, those guys still had to play within the framework of the rules as basketball was written. So the pace of the game has changed. It's much, much faster, true, but they're getting away with a lot more. So are you trying to say that because the pace of the game has changed and it's faster, that it's okay to allow them not to be called for violations? I really don't follow your argument here. Doesn't make sense. But yeah, leave your comments in the comment section. I'm really curious to hear what you guys got to say about that one. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it right there. This was a quick one, and yeah, I'll be back with you next week, and of course, you'll be seeing shows during the week. But I definitely wanted to get on here, give some thoughts about this stuff, and really just drop some science. And again, what I love is when I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I love when the actual guys who are in the league, who played at a high level, who know what they're talking about, since I don't, go ahead and corroborate everything I've been saying. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to get back to you. And I'm out. Peace.